V marks Doja Cat's fifth studio record and a notable return to the pop stylings that made her a superstar earlier this decade. Named after the French word for life, this album is a clear nod to the 1980s and her most romantic record to date. You guys know the drill. I'll discuss the era so far, give my honest thoughts on the record before going track by track and assigning a score. So here's a quick recap before V. It's hard to believe that 2 years ago, Doja Cat had dropped Scarlet, her fourth record, and the antithesis to her smash hit Planet Her. Scarlet was Doja's masculine rebuttal to critics claiming that she couldn't rap. It spawned two big hits for her first ever solo smash, Paint the Town Red, and the sleeper hit Agora Hills. Her first hints at V came from a couple of posts last October hinting at an album, with some fans even getting to hear some tracks at an event at Airbnb. Doja would soft launch her comeback featuring on Lisa's Born Again and Jack Harlow's Just Us at the start of this year, but both kind of performed modestly on the charts. The big swing, though, for this album was previewing Jealous Type for a campaign with Marc Jacobs back in May, confirming that the song would be a single at the Met Gala. This album was mostly produced by Jack Antonoff and Y2k, and it was completed in July. Formally announced in August for a September release, Doja would launch Jealous Type as the lead single in late August to critical acclaim, and it would debut at 28 on the charts. She'd also perform this at the VMAs. Though honestly, it and the album's rollout probably would have gone a lot better had she just dropped it earlier in the summer. V was also promoted through a hotline and some distinct visuals that tied it to the 1980s. Doja would unveil a set of vinyl variants based on the love languages, though the final cover was unveiled earlier this week, and it does not really match that aesthetic. The parachute cover represents the feeling of falling in love, adventure, life, and wisdom, which honestly is a pretty good metaphor for the album itself. And then the album dropped, so here are my overall thoughts. V is a very thrilling 49-minute record that blends her R&B and hip-hop style with the 1980s very well. I think it is actually one of the better pop records of the year and a true embrace of Doja's talent in the genre. I was actually pretty much hooked from the very first track to the last. There are 15 tracks. It is nearly 50 minutes of great world building and a very coherent and cohesive 1980s vision that feels less cover band and more artistic vision. I will admit, though, that I'm a bit biased because I really do like that sound. If Planet Her was her sellout record and Scarlet was a temper tantrum for street cred, V is her finally maturing and creating her own lane. This is the album that Say So being her breakout hit has led to, effortless pop songwriting with some clever bars in between. Doja really accepts her destiny as a pop polymath. And just like Scarlet, this album was apparently self-written. Her only features on this are her mother via voice note on the standout Gorgeous, and a surprise assist from SZA on Take Me Dancing. Thematically and lyrically, this does feel like Doja at her most honest. She breaches topics like romance, self-confidence, and her overall state of being with gusto. Even on a vocal level, I think she finally embraces her love of singing. All Mine is a really good showcase of her range. Antonoff and Y2k also have some pretty good productions that allow her to flourish without really drowning her out, though some of the vocal mixes were a miss for me. It's hard to point out a standout on the production side because all of these tracks sounded pretty good on my speakers. Antonoff's love for the saxophone pops up on this album, especially on Lip Stain. Doja's willingness to call back to classic sounds and even her own previous flows makes this a pretty unpredictable record at times. Just when you get comfortable with a certain vibe, she shifts it up every now and then. I really noticed a love in particular for Janet Jackson, which is most felt on Take Me Dancing, which gives it a really fun texture, but you can also see some direct cribbing from Prince and Paula Abdul here and there. One thing I really appreciated was how full-bodied each of the songs felt. I felt like most of them didn't feel undercooked or too short. Even Silly Fun, which is a short track on the record, feels complete because she knows how to stuff a verse. All of the praise out of the way, I will admit that the album's track listing is a little bit unwieldy. Despite some of the few jolts, I felt like the last back half of tracks were way stronger than the first half, especially when she leans into the pop melodies. I really loved when she dipped into the glam rock sounds. One More Time has these killer guitars in the back that I'm certain will kill on tour. Speaking of which, I do think that this is her most tourable record. I could already envision a show just hearing these tracks. I have to say that my standouts so far are Happy, Come Back, All Mine, and Gorgeous. They were my immediate first listen favorites, though I do expect myself to change those as time passes. I don't think I hated a single track, though there might be some that I skipped through. I have to also say that RCA has botched yet another rollout. I think that V's her most accessible record and probably should have had Jealous Type out earlier in the summer, maybe with Gorgeous and another track as another single. Make no mistake, there are so many hits on here, and the record does deserve attention, and while I do love that I was able to hear most of it for the first time, as a project, some of my friends were shocked that she even had a record out. These are people that are kind of offline, and I think they'll find out soon enough. So is this Doja's best record? I think so. I think it's up there with Planet Her. It has the occasional bite that I think Scarlet had, and it does feel like her first post-coming-of-age record. This might be the first record that she seemed to be happy making throughout the entire process, so you can hear the joy on it. I just wish that it got better promotion. Which brings us to the track-by-track. Cards is a solid opener. I think she sets the tone and the mood pretty well on this track and the record overall. This track also sets up this romance that she seems to be singing about. It's about how this man has to kind of play his cards right so that you can give him a chance. The French motif is set up with the Mon Cherie line. I really love the switch up to the rap in the middle. She effortlessly rides the beat. The chorus feels a little understated and subtle though. Jealous Type was always meant to be the perfect lead single choice. I think the instrumental is triumphant, the song is pretty hooky, the concept is very simple and easy to follow about her being someone with a jealousy issue. One thing I didn't realize how smart was the line torn between two roads I can't decide. It feels like a meta comment on her choosing between pop and rap, which I think she balances pretty well on this track and the album overall. And the music video is just so visually stunning. I just wish this had gotten the rollout it deserved. I think it should have been a bigger smash. Amen has this really slick, dangerous beat to it that immediately sticks out. It apparently samples the Knight Rider theme song, which is another nod to the 1980s. The first verse actually reminded me quite a bit of Get Into It, Yeah. Only Doja could drop a banger that has the words Goon Sesh in it, and somehow nods Keira Knightley's teeth and Leroy Jenkins in it. I do think that this track is about the love-hate dynamic. It's pretty well done in that aspect where the chorus is about this man being ugly hot, but she just can't seem to stay away. Couples Therapy is a mid-tempo track where she laments her relationship that's falling apart when she's dreading his distance, but also she's pretty aware of her own flaws. It's a pretty short track. Her rap verse where she talks about her three selves and apologizes about her shortcomings and baggage is pretty solid. I found it pretty mature that she holds herself accountable, but also reminds him that he needs to put in some effort. It feels like an interlude. Gorgeous is a self-affirming track with some of the slickest production on the entire album. It opens with that immaculate hook, where she really just calls it a crime to be as gorgeous as she is before this voice note comes in from her mother, and then she digs deep into things like surgery and wigs, the paparazzi, but that second verse is the highlight. It's very strong, the flow, the confidence. She ain't no Christian in Louboutins, like that line about collagen and being botched again. I thought the wordplay is really great, and the line that really got to me was I only got myself to appeal to. It feels like an answer to that song Attention, especially with how she opens with Yeah, Look at Me. And the music video is just great. Stranger opens with sax and synths. This track is a very romantic track about how she kind of enters and accepts this odd lover into her life. This lover is a freak, but she's willing to match the energy. The line "I me like a queer" kind of gagged me, as did the rap. There's the couplet in there where she implies that this man was bisexual, and she still likes him, and he likes that, she likes that. The line, "If we split, it'll be like two halves, ain't nobody in the world got what you have," it's so corny, but it really does work. All Mine is a track where Doja gets to sing and flex her vocals a bit. She might not have the strongest voice, but she has a very lovely and breathy delivery that delicately delivers the emotion needed for the track. This track is about claiming a lover as hers, which apparently seems to be a recurring theme in this record, and only hers, having it also have to go both ways. Doja still lays down a few bars on this. Towards the end, she does this lovely stuttering thing with the words go and so and want at the end that feel like gunshots. I really love the way that she uses her voice in a punctuation sense. She knows how to space out like the syllables. Take Me Dancing with SZA is a heavenly bop. That's a total Janet Jackson tribute. Antonoff and Y2k were pretty much in their bag for the production on this one. I think it's a dance floor ready track with a chorus that feels almost instructional on how to dance to it. SZA's verse and her ad-libs have this gravitas to them that really adds to the track. She jumps on like she was always meant to be on this. And when the saxophones come in at the very end, I really felt like I was ascending. Lipstain is a sultry, low-key track that sees Doja go full francophile on one of the verses where she sings about getting down and leaving a lip stain on her lover, marking him as hers on purpose. We gotta mark out territory for them dogs, girl is just an insane line, as is the smelling like ice cream and pheromones. With this record, there were times where I had to kind of replay a track to see if I heard something right. Not because of her enunciation, but just the shock value. Silly Fun is a short and sweet little pop track that channels throwaway fun 80s pop pretty well. I think it's actually one of the more playful tracks on this, and it's about being love bombed in a way. She's so consumed with locking this all down. The second verse is like kind of a masterclass in going way too deep in, buying a mansion, 3 cats, and 2 garages full of cars, and then swerving away saying she's happy she got the prenup, only to go back to the whole married in Vegas line on the chorus. I just love how head over heels she sounds on this one. Acts of Service felt like a spiritual sequel to Agora Hills, from the instrumental to the way that it's delivered. I think it's a sleeper track that has a very lush vibe to it that really blossoms as it continues. I keep on saying it, but I really love her second verses on this album. This one in particular just feels so smooth, like talking about deleting Raya, name-checking Manifest Destiny, and just stuffing in syllables like there's no tomorrow. There are a few ad-libs at the very end and letting the beat play out that really feel like a deft touch and tribute to the 80s. Make It Up coming after, though, feels like she's trying to one-up herself. This is sort of where the album started to blend a little way into itself because of cohesion. Make It Up in a vacuum, like let's say it was put on another part of this album, would have been a stronger song, but coming after and being so repetitive with that chorus made it feel like a chore to get through, even with the strong production. One More Time begins a very poppy last 3-track run. This one has a cheerleadery ad-lib on the chorus and a killer guitar on the instrumental that leans into glam rock and other sounds of the 80s that she clearly loves. This track speaks to the cycle that she has where she wants to unlearn her hurt and is dying to love and take the leap of faith, but always ending up on the wrong side of that. Happy is one of my favorite tracks because I do think that it's the one that nails 1980s the best on this entire record. I think the instrumental itself is a masterpiece, but the song itself is also pretty catchy and deep. This track actually shocked me because she's calling out someone who has been breaking her heart and cheating on her, and the French in the chorus, when you translate it, actually answers her questions where she tells her lover to break her heart again tonight. It's a really sad banger and one of the more emotional tracks on this record. Comeback is the closing track, and it sees her ex-lover begging her to come back to him, but she just won't. She's learned her lesson, and while she still loves him and possibly could be a best friend, she just cannot accept that he is the one for her and be the one for him. Mainly because I think she has finally kind of come full circle and loved herself again. The production and those saxes really help out in sort of closing the story and lending a sense of freedom to the track. I mean, overall, V is a pretty solid comeback record. I think it's actually a pretty great pop record, and while at times it can feel repetitive, there are some solid sonic swings here and there. I'll be fair, some people might have Antonoff or 1980s revival exhaustion, but I found this to be a joy to listen to, and I'm glad to give it an 8 out of 10. And that's a wrap. Thank you so much for tuning in to this pretty low-key V review. Let me know what your favorite tracks were below in the comments, how you feel about the album and its rollout. A quick shout out to my members. Thank you so much for taking that extra step and joining my channel. A shout out to my subscribers. Thank you so much for tuning into my videos all the time when you can. I also plan to cover Zara Larsson's Midnight Sun later this week, so if you're excited for that and you're not subscribed, subscribe today. And we are 1 week out from the big one. I hope to see you next video.